This conference will now be recorded.
Yeah, I think we're ready if you are, Barb.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. We're glad that you could make it to the TAC meeting. We're going to start out doing the roll call and certification of quorum. So we ask that everyone identify themselves first when speaking so we can more accurately record the activities of the meeting. All lines have been muted by the administrator to minimize additional noise and feedback. You may unmute your line at any time to request acknowledgement from the chair. Staff will be monitoring the chat throughout the meeting to assure we do not overlook anyone wishing to participate in the discussion. Please indicate your presence by saying aye when your name is called during roll call. Anyone who wishes to identify themselves following the roll call of members will be invited to do so. So I will ask Nicole to certify that we have followed the procedures, approved procedures for appropriate notice of the meeting and the means by which we are convening.
Yes, ma'am. Good morning. This is Nicole Mueller, and I can certify that we have followed the approved procedures. I'm going to go ahead and take attendance by roll call, and we're going to start with Chesterfield County, Ms. Smith.
Aye.
Ms. Faulkner. City of Richmond, Ms. Clark.
Aye.
Mr. Bridewell. Goochland County, Mr. Coleman. Mr. Kilduff. Hanover County, Mr. Vidunas. Mr. Flagg. Henrico County, Ms. Smidler.
Aye.
Mr. Yor. New Kent County, Ms. Leduc.
Present.
Powhatan County, Mr. Pompey.
Here.
Mr. Howland. Town of Ashland, Ms. Amos. Mr. Tucker. Capital Region Airport Commission, Mr. Rutledge. GRTC Transit System, Ms. Torres.
Here.
Ms. Del Ross.
Here.
Richmond Metropolitan Transportation Authority, Ms. Simmons. Plan RVA, Mr. Parsons.
Here.
Mr. Ariel.
I'm here.
Right Finders, Ms. Tisdale. Mr. O'Keefe.
Aye.
Department of Rail and Public Transportation, Ms. Dubinsky.
Aye.
Mr. Sparks. Virginia Department of Transportation, Ms. McAdory.
Aye.
And Mr. Herman.
Aye.
That concludes the roll call for attendance, Madam Chair.
I do see Mr. Coleman signed on. I know he didn't verbally acknowledge, so
Okay.
Tom, if you're available, let us know in the chat or over the phone.
Yeah, Chad, I'm here.
Thank you. I will mark you as present.
And I think
Thank
I
you.
see Nora just joined us too.
Okay, awesome.
Okay, thank you, Nicole.
Mhm.
The next item on the agenda is the statement regarding virtual meetings, and I'll hand that off to Chet.
Thank you very much. The statement regarding virtual meetings is on the screen. It hasn't changed, but we're required to read through it. So without further ado, since the governor declared the state of emergency on March 12th, 2020, in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, state and local governmental bodies have been providing for the continuity of government by meeting remotely by telephonic or electronic means in compliance with the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, the Commonwealth's emergency and other applicable laws, guidance provided by the Attorney General and their respective legal counsel. On April 22nd, the General Assembly approved the budget amendment to authorize all public bodies, including regional bodies such as Plain RVA and the Richmond Regional Transportation Planning Organization, likewise to meet by electronic means without a fiscal quorum assembled together during a governor-declared state of emergency, as long as certain conditions are met so as to provide for the continuity of governmental operations. This new authority is effective immediately. Bylaws of the RRTPO define a quorum of the body to be a majority of the TAC membership, which shall include, at a minimum, 4 of the local government representatives. The 2020 COVID-19 virus makes it impractical and unsafe, even potentially life-threatening, for a quorum of this size to physically assemble in one location pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3708.2A3. Further, the virus makes it impractical and unsafe for the public and the agency staff to gather in the same location to participate in this meeting. The health, safety, and welfare of our community is of paramount importance. Therefore, we have determined the appropriateness and eligibility to conduct today's meeting of the RRTPO electronically, pursuant to the provisions of Virginia Code Section 2.2-3708.2 and related legislation approved by the General Assembly of Virginia, and in light of the governor's state of emergency declaration for COVID-19. The convening of the Richmond Regional Transportation Planning Organization, TAC, has been determined necessary in order to continue the necessary business of the organization. The matters included on the agenda address important and essential matters of continuing the work of government, and therefore it is appropriate to convene during this time. While we do not know the exact duration of the current practice of electronic meetings, we will continue to function in this manner until such time as it is deemed advisable to return to in-person meetings. Our TPO staff have provided notice of this meeting and the means by which we are virtually gathered to members of the public. Notice was provided on July 7th, 2020, through posting on the Plain RVA website and distribution of email notification to members, alternates, and known interested parties, including the media. In order to comply with the provisions of Virginia law and to improve accessibility to the discussions intended for today, this meeting will be recorded. Audiovisual recordings of this meeting will be posted on the Plain RVA website within 48 hours of the meeting. Any members of the public wishing to address the RRTPO TAC are invited to submit comments via email until the close of business one day prior to the meeting in order to be reviewed and addressed during the meeting if necessary. Anyone participating as an observer during the meeting today may submit comments or questions at any time during the meeting via email at rrtpoinput@plainrva.org or by using the online chat functions of the meeting platform. Those individuals who are observing by phone may be called upon to address the RRTPO TAC with their questions or comments. All comments and questions submitted during the meeting will be reviewed following the meeting, and to the extent practical, responses may be provided or posted on the Plain RVA website. Does anyone have any questions regarding the process for assuring effective facilitation of this meeting or for how members of the public may participate? Without hearing any comments, item 3 under welcome and introductions, the procedures for electronic meetings were agreed upon in April by the RTPO Policy Board and have been posted on our website. Those have not changed. We do not need to read through those again, but if anyone does have questions, including members of the public, regarding the procedures for electronic meetings, staff would be certainly willing to address those following the meeting or at a time appropriate. With that, I turn it back over to Chairman Smith.
Thanks, Chet. Okay, so moving on to the first item on the agenda, that's approval of today's meeting agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda? Okay, if there's a motion to approve the agenda.
Sharon Smidler, so moved.
John
And a
O'Keefe, I'll
second.
second. I'll second. This is John O'Keefe.
Thank you. Nicole?
Thank you. Yes, the committee will now be voting on item number 1, approval of today's meeting agenda. Chesterfield County, Ms. Smith.
Aye.
City of Richmond, Ms. Clark.
Aye.
Goochland County, Mr. Coleman.
Aye.
Henrico County, Ms. Smidler.
Aye.
New Kent County, Ms. Leduc.
Aye.
Powhatan County, Mr. Pompey.
Aye.
Town of Ashland, Ms. Amos.
Aye.
GRTC, Ms. Torres.
Aye.
Plan RVA, Mr. Parsons.
Aye.
Right Finders, Mr. O'Keefe.
Aye.
DRPT, Ms. Dubinsky.
Aye.
And VDOT, Ms. McAdory.
Aye.
That concludes the voting for item number 1, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. The next item is approval of the June 9th, 2020 TAC meeting minutes. That was our regular June meeting. Are there any corrections, changes, additions to the minute? All right, is there a motion to approve the minute?
This is Liz McAdory, so moved.
Thanks. A second?
Sharon Smidler, second.
Thank you. Nicole?
The committee will now be voting on item number 2, approval of the June 9th meeting minutes. Chesterfield County, Ms. Smith.
Aye.
City of Richmond, Ms. Clark.
Aye.
Goochland County, Mr. Coleman.
Aye.
Henrico County, Ms. Smidler.
Aye.
New Kent County, Ms. Leduc.
Aye.
Powhatan County, Mr. Pompey.
Aye.
Town of Ashland, Ms. Amos.
Aye.
GRTC, Ms. Torres.
Aye.
Plan RVA, Mr. Parsons.
Aye.
Right Finders, Mr. O'Keefe.
Aye.
DRPT, Ms. Dubinsky.
Aye.
And VDOT, Ms. McAdory.
Aye.
That concludes the voting for item number 2.
Thank you. The next item is approval of the June 25th, 2020 TAC meeting minutes, and that was the meeting pertaining to Smart Scale. Are there any changes to the minute? All right, seeing none, is there a motion for approval?
This is Tiffany Dubinsky, so moved.
Thanks. A second, please.
John
This
O'Keefe,
is
I'll
Andrew
second.
Pompey.
Thank you very much. John, I guess.
Yes,
If
I'll
you'll
take
take-
Mr. O'Keefe. The committee will now be voting on item number 3, approval of the June 25th meeting minutes. Chesterfield County, Ms. Smith.
Aye.
City of Richmond, Ms. Clark.
Aye.
Goochland County, Mr. Coleman.
Aye.
Henrico County, Ms. Smidler.
Aye.
New Kent County, Ms. Leduc.
I'll abstain. I wasn't able to make that one.
Thank you. Powhatan County, Mr. Pompey.
Aye.
Town of Ashland, Ms. Amos.
Aye.
GRTC, Ms. Torres.
Aye.
Plan RVA, Mr. Parsons.
Aye.
Right Finders, Mr. O'Keefe.
Aye.
DRPT, Ms. Dubinsky.
Aye.
And VDOT, Ms. McAdory.
Aye.
That concludes the voting for item number 3.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the public comment period. Have we received any comments through email or the chat?
We have not, to my knowledge.
Is there anyone on the line who would like to make a comment? I heard somebody in the background. All right, moving on to item number 5, TAC Chairman's Report. We have, following this meeting, a CVTA, Central Virginia Transportation Authority meeting scheduled for 11 o'clock. And many of the people who are participating on the TAC are included in that work group, so we hope to talk to you then. Otherwise, we'll move on to item number 6, which is the TPO update from Chet.
Thank you, and I'm referring to the agenda packet. Item 6A, current work efforts update. We are continuing to move forward with our Connect RVA 2045 long-range plan. Many of you have seen, hopefully all of you have seen, the current survey that is available for public review. I believe we have close to 200 responses so far. I haven't gotten an update this week, but that's very good. And the survey is geared towards what the transportation priorities should be for the region. I think that we are working on another survey with our partners at VDOT that will be put out hopefully in early August, and looking forward to that, which will deal more with vision and goals for the long-range plan. The greater RVA Transit Vision Plan is being close to completion now, and we are working on the presentation and format for that plan to be presented. We're moving forward with our regional bike and ped plan update, and there's a link in the agenda packet to Story Map, which our staff has developed, led by Barb Jaycox and Phil Riggin, of existing infrastructure, bike ped features, and statistics on injuries and fatalities in the region. And that's a regional map. We've gotten input from a lot of you, and we appreciate that feedback on the current infrastructure and plans that are being put in place. The Vision Zero work group was kicked off on June 4th as a virtual meeting, and thanks to Ms. Clark and Mr. Sawyer from the City of Richmond, we have great leadership in place for that work group and are looking forward to continuing that effort through the fiscal year. As you know, many of you know, the American Planning Association Virginia chapter had rescheduled to September. There was an announcement this week that in-person September meeting is now going to be virtual and later on in the fall. So please stay tuned for more information on that as the details are released. And then finally, Smart Scale Round 4, there's an agenda item later on this morning where I'll provide an update on where things stand following the special TAC meeting on June 25th and the action of the policy board on July 2nd.
All right.
That's all I have
Thanks,
for the
Chad.
TPO update.
Thank you very much. So item number 7 is election of FY21 TAC officers. We go through a rotation with this. So who's up next?
The next in the projected order, the next up to be chair would be the town of Ashland, with New Kent County following as vice chair for this year.
Great. Is there a motion for approval? A motion to elect the 21 chair and vice chair with town of Ashland and New Kent?
This is Tom. So moved.
Thank you. And a second?
This is Liz, second.
Thank you. All in favor? Oh, sorry. We need to do the roll call.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I'll go ahead and take the roll call. The committee will now be voting on item number 7, election of FY21 TAC Chair and Vice Chair. Chesterfield County, Ms. Smith.
Aye.
City of Richmond, Ms. Clark.
Aye.
Goochland County, Mr. Coleman.
Aye.
Henrico County, Ms. Smidler.
Aye.
New Kent County, Ms. Leduc.
Aye.
Powhatan County, Mr. Pompey.
Aye.
Town of Ashland, Ms. Amos.
Aye.
GRTC, Ms. Torres.
Aye.
Plan RVA, Mr. Parsons.
Aye.
Ride Finders, Mr. O'Keefe.
Aye.
DRPT, Ms. Dubinsky.
Aye.
And VDOT, Ms. McAdory.
Aye.
That concludes the voting for item number 7.
Excuse me? This is Joe Vidunas with Hanover. I just joined the call.
Thank you for letting us know, Mr. Vidunas. Did you want
And
to
I vote
vote
on
on item number 7?
Yes, in the affirmative.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. We're at item 8 now, Transit Work Group. And I'll turn that over to Chet.
Thank you very much. At the July 2nd Policy Board meeting, the Policy Board approved and requested that the TAC go ahead and establish the Transit Work Group membership and empowers this, and that would empower the staff to determine the best way to incorporate the work group into the UPWP. For those of you who were not included or need a refresher, part of the establishment of the Central Virginia Transportation Authority by the 2020 General Assembly, that authority was given the responsibility to develop transportation priorities and administer funds generated through fuel and sales use tax to projects in the Richmond region. And as part of that legislation, the CVTA is called to utilize the staff and capabilities of GRTC and the RRTPO to develop a plan for regional public transportation within Planning District 15. The current TPO structure does not include a committee or work group specifically tasked with addressing transit in the region, although TAC has ably addressed that in the past. But in its efforts to support more equitable transportation services in the Richmond region, this specific work group would provide an ongoing forum for more transparent regional conversations about mobility and accessibility for all residents. So the staff recommendation is that the TAC establish this transit work group and identify the membership, and then allow staff to come back with a recommendation at a later date on how best to incorporate the work group into the adopted UPWP for fiscal year 21. So the action requested following discussion is that the Technical Advisory Committee establish the work group consisting of representatives of member organizations. We would need an identification of which member organizations and representatives those would be. And once established, the work group will begin immediate work towards development of a regional public transportation plan. In terms of time frame, the hope is that this regional transit plan would be developed by the end of the calendar year or soon after, with the primary focus of this initial transit plan to identify priorities for transit expenditures so that revenues received by the Central Virginia Transportation Authority could be utilized in an efficient manner as those revenues are collected.
Okay, thank you, Chet. Do we have an idea of how many people would be a good number to serve on this committee?
Staff recommendation would be a smaller number, just to be more flexible, say 4 to 5.
Okay, and this group would do the initial look or development of a plan, but it would route through the TAC before going through to the TPO?
Absolutely. And I think the idea is that GRTC and TPO staff would perform most of the due diligence and the work on the developing the plan, with this group serving more as a steering committee and a sounding board.
Okay.
Madam
So
Chair,
I'll get the,
this is
go ahead.
are we at discussion? Or I know we're not,
Yes.
we haven't made a motion, but I have a couple of things. First is I'm getting a little bit unclear on the difference or the interchangeability of the use of the word transit and then public transportation. So I think that some clarification or uniformity in the use of the language be determined when we talk about this group. And then I also think that it's a huge undertaking, and that there needs to be some structure, at least to me, in front of my face in writing, what exactly kind of the scope or the purpose of this group is. Because just kind of, and then that can be determined after the group members are chosen and so forth. But I think that it's important that we understand what exactly the purpose of the group is. And I know, like, for example, you just said that it would be finished, or some parts of it would be finished by December 2020, and that one of the first goals is to have transit, what priority transit expenditures would be for GRTC's first set of funds. And I don't know how that became exactly the purpose of the first round. Again, I'm going to stand pretty firm on seeking that these regional funds really take a look at at public transportation as a whole across the region, and that transit or urban solutions aren't the only things presented. And so again, I think going straight for what transit expenditures would be spent is kind of putting the cart before the horse, in that we're here to develop a plan. And definitely seeing a scope of what the intent of it would definitely help me and ease some of this unease that I do have currently with this.
So, Dirona, the difference between public transportation and transit, what is the term? Can you help us with those definitions and maybe give us some guidance on which one you think is appropriate?
Yeah, I mean, for example, currently right now, GRTC is a transit provider. They provide transit services, fixed route transit services, and some paratransit, FTA required paratransit service to the localities. And then public transportation encompasses a number of mobility options for localities to choose from, whether that's like a deviated fixed route, or that's rural transportation options. That public transportation could be that you provide funds to link intercity bus from rural areas to urban areas. There's just an array of things that public transportation encompasses, and it encompasses transit. And at this time, GRTC isn't a full service provider of all of those types of services. Not saying that they can't be or want to be, but that's just, they're a transit provider right now. And so when we're looking at these regional funds and we talk about the CVTA, we can't lose sight of the entity in which is going to be providing these services, and truly or not, if that entity, if the outcome is going to be transit only options, or if they're going to be other mobility options for the region.
Got it. So I think in the, at least in the write-up for this item, for the most part, public transportation, a regional public transportation plan is referenced in the write-up. Do we want to rename the work group the TPO Public Transportation Work Group, just so that we can be a little more broad and make sure that we're not, I don't know, that it's more encompassing in case some of the options that come out of it expand beyond what GRTC is able to provide.
This is Adrienne from GRTC. Isn't the wording though in the legislation specifically about transit funds that we're talking about in terms of the plan?
I'd need to look. Let me look.
This is Tiffany Dubinsky. So with the work group, is this supposed to help in terms of GRTC deciding how they use their allocation, or is this supposed to help CBTA figure out how do you, in general, incorporate transit or public transportation priorities into how they spend the regional funds? I think that might be something that needs to be a little bit clearer in this case. If it tends to be that it's supposed to be for the actual transportation authority, I could see the use of using public transportation. I'm not going to argue about whether or not GRTC is actually a public transportation provider, because that's not what I'm trying to focus on here. But if the transit work group is supposed to focus on helping GRTC in lieu of, kind of in tandem, because they're in between their adopted transit development plan and then eventually working on transit strategic plan, I could see then you could keep the focus more on transit work group. So I just kind of, maybe that might be easier to clarify about what the work group is supposed to be supporting in this case.
Right, which goes back to what Dirona mentioned when she made her comments also, that we need a clear purpose and scope of work for the work group. I think the thing that really pushed to get this group formed was the CVTA, and because of the amount of money, 15% of the funds will go to GRTC to provide transit and mobility services in Planning District 15. So that's how the money is to be allocated. I was trying to find the part about the plan itself.
I've got the reference, or do you want me to read it? So
yeah.
Item G under section 3701, the Central Virginia Transportation Fund, says that the GRTC shall create a separate special fund in which all revenues received pursuant to subdivision D2 shall be deposited. GRTC shall develop a plan for regional public transportation within Planning District 15 in collaboration with the Richmond Regional Transportation Planning Organization in conformance with the guidelines required by 286.
Okay.
That's the driver here. That's the that's all the detail we have really. And I think the thought was that a lot of those the scope and focus that Ms. Clark mentioned would be developed by this work group as we move forward.
Right, and while the CVTA might be the primary focus for the group to start with, you pointed out that we don't really have a committee and are probably at the point in the region where we need a specific committee to talk about public transportation in the region. And so beyond the CVTA, I can see that this group should stay in place to try to develop the regional system that we're after.
This is Tiffany. I think the other thing I would like to consider is just that, you know, this regional public transportation plan is not only looking at GRTC and their current capabilities, you know, it's taking into account the potential use of these additional funds for them to be able to expand their services. So, you know, while there may be some limitations on how they can be more of a mobility provider, I think that that would be the opportunity for this work group to kind of help to identify some short-term implementation for them to be able to expand, especially considering the conversation that TPO has had about more access for rural areas and some solutions that can be done there. So I think it's okay to still use regional public transportation plan in this case.
Yeah, if I may, this is Dirona. I totally agree. I think that my words are simply a push and a look into the future and vision of what GRTC, some of the shoes it's kind of inherited in us looking to them to be the regional provider for us. And so we're moving, we're definitely, I'm definitely in support of anything that we can. I just want to make sure that as we move forward, it's clear on that, what some of the goals of the group would be, what some of the goals of the funding would be, and that if we do create priorities, then that be determined by the group and not just predetermined as such. I've spoken before in regard to the Transit Vision Plan 2 and its recommendations, any other larger projects that could be considered for the regional funding.
Right. I think that these types of discussion points are exactly what this work group will need to consider as they're putting together the regional public transportation plan. Can we talk about the members that should be included? I would get us started by saying it makes sense for GRTC, Virginia Department of Rail and Public Transportation, the City of Richmond. I would hope Chesterfield would be able to be on that committee. So as a starting point, we'll get going with those. Can someone else make some suggestions?
This is Sharon Smidler with Henrico. I'd also like to serve.
Thank you. It would be good to get some rural representation also. I know you guys are busy and stretched thin.
Yeah, Madam Chair, this is Tom. I don't know that I see a role for us on this committee. I think certainly if that changes, maybe we could approach about joining it, but I just don't know that I see us in the vision.
Okay. I believe there's some sort of public transportation running in Charles City or New Kent now with I can't remember the name of that company. Rona, do you remember?
Transit. Bay Transit still operates in New Kent.
Yep. And I know you're super busy, Kelly.
Yes, I am. I'm not volunteering for another group, sorry.
Okay, I understand.
I need an alternate. I keep pushing Miss Page to give me an alternate or somebody to help.
I would also suggest Ken Lance.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Ken would be a great addition.
Yeah. Should we invite someone from the CTAC to participate?
Yes, I think that would be a great idea. I don't know if you want to select someone or TAC meets next week. Is that right, Nicole? They could discuss it at that point and provide a recommendation back.
Yes, TAC is meeting in 2 days on Thursday.
Okay, we'll just leave a spot for them and they can decide who would be best to fill that role. This seems like a good start. If I think we're looking for a motion, and you can see in the agenda packet the action requested. The highlighted list of member organizations, the ones that we just discussed were GRTC, Department of Rail and Public Transportation, City of Richmond, Chesterfield, Henrico, TPO staff, Ken Lance, and a CTAC representative. If there's a motion in support of that,
This is Darana. I make a motion with just the amended word where it says RRTPO Transit, that it says Public Transportation Work Group, and then consisting of representatives that were aforementioned by Barb. And then once it's established, the work group would begin immediate work towards development of the regional public transportation plan.
all right. Is
This is
there
Nora.
a second?
Sorry, that was
Thank you. Are we good, or do we need to restate that motion? I think we're good. Is there any discussion? We'll go ahead and take roll call.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can I just confirm that Ms. Clark made the motion and Ms. Amos seconded it? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. The committee will now be voting on item number 8, the establishment of the transit work group. Chesterfield County, Ms. Smith.
Aye.
City of Richmond, Ms. Clark.
Aye.
Goochland County, Mr. Coleman.
Aye.
Hanover County, Mr. Vidunas.
Aye.
Henrico County, Ms. Smidler.
Aye.
New Kent County, Ms. Leduc.
Aye.
Powhatan County, Mr. Pompey.
Aye.
Town of Ashland, Ms. Amos.
aye.
GRTC, Ms. Torres.
Aye.
Plan RVA, Mr. Parsons.
Aye.
Right Finders, Mr. O'Keefe.
Aye.
DRPT, Ms. Dubinsky.
Aye.
And VDOT, Ms. McAdory. That concludes the voting for item number 8.
Okay, thank you. Item number 9 is a Smart Scale project pool update from Chet.
Thank you. TAC met June 25th to specifically discuss narrowing the list of pre-applications from 12 to 10 for final smart scale regional project applications. That discussion was very fruitful, and I appreciate everyone's participation. As reflected in the agenda packet, a summary of that discussion was included and focused on developing a list with contingencies for project application of the 2 I-64 widening projects by New Kent County. Following that meeting, the policy board met on July 2nd and made their selection for the 10 projects to be moved forward with full applications for round 4 smart scale. Those projects are listed below and include the 2 I-64 capacity expansion projects. So the initial TAC recommendation moved forward without any alterations. So that there is no TAC action requested at this time. This is just for informational purposes. I'd be happy to take any questions. I did have one request for the body, is that if you are working on application content for any of the projects that you were shepherding through this, and I'm looking specifically at Chesterfield and the City of Richmond, you have been contacted already, and I think everything is underway and we're in good shape. But just a reminder to get that information ready. If you need any more details on what's required, feel free to contact me or Miles Bushing after the meeting.
Okay, thanks, Chet. Yep, we're working hard on our smart scale applications, including the regional application. All right, next on the
This
agenda
is Nora.
is
Could I ask a question?
Sure.
Chet, we have Kelly on the line now, and this may have been discussed at the TPO meeting, but could you give an update on the 264 projects that we discussed so much at our last meeting?
Yes, so the discussion at our last meeting was whether New Kent would move forward with the applications for those two projects themselves. They were conditionally screened in for both New Kent and for the TPO. And New Kent requested that TPO continue with the application for the I-64 project. So that kept the TAC list, the original TAC list, without any modifications from the meeting. So I think the request from New Kent made it easy on the TPO to make a choice, and just went forward with what TAC had lined up, without any swaps or replacing of anything. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Our next item is Transportation Agency update. And we'll start with Liz.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. I was gonna put myself on camera. There we go. Okay, so really quickly report on the CTB. They did have a June meeting, and they did take action on the approval of the annual safety performance targets for 2021. There will be a presentation through the MPO quarterly and coordination meetings, and TAC later this year. I don't have a schedule when, but later this year, TAC will be asked to adopt those 2021 safety targets. There is going to be a July meeting. I assume it's going to be virtual. I've not heard anything different. The workshop is on July 14th at 9 a.m., which is a different time than usual. It's usually at 10 a.m. And they are going to be giving a presentation on the I-64, 664 study, which I'll mention later on. The action meeting for the CTB is going to be July 15th, the following day at 9 a.m. Smart Scale Round 4, as you all know, the pre-screening is complete. District planning is still working with applicants. If you guys need help with your final submissions, or you're missing something or need us to review something, that assistance is still available, so let us know. And I don't believe formal word has come out from the Smart Scale portal, but the deadline has been extended to August 17th at 5 p.m. That's a change from August 3rd, so we get the 2 additional weeks for that. So that's good news. SIP development, there is no real change from last time. They're still shooting for fall this year. I will say one thing, and Miles and Chet and I have been talking about this. I talked with our IID, which is our programming division. They basically said it's fine, and actually suggested for the MPOs to go ahead and move forward through their RSTP and CMAQ process. Not a specific rush, but just to go ahead and do that so that when they do adopt the new SIP, everything will be in order. The other thing that does is if you have a previous project that had FY21 money, and if you have to move any of that money around, having an adopted RSTP and CMAQ plan allows you to do that. Moving on to the interstate studies, I-95, no real change from last time, still shooting for CTB, or presentation to the CTB this fall. I-64, they have completed all the data collection and analysis. Draft improvements are being developed, and they're going to do similar to 95, a smart scale-like analysis, and we should see those results this summer. And they are going to start doing public meetings this fall. They are planning to do virtual for at least the first round, and obviously we'll go from there. A new study that's in our district is I-85 and I-95, very similar to the 95 and 64 studies. The entire corridor for both these falls in the Richmond district, so it'll be a heavy lift on our end. The operations data is, and that actually the whole operations analysis is being handled from central office, and that data collection is complete, and they're working on developing recommendations. There's going to, like I said, similar approach to the other studies. There will be public hearings, but there's no real schedule for the latter part of the study, so I'll provide that as soon as we have it. And as far as upcoming public meetings, we have none specific to the RRTPO area. And that's my update.
Thank you, Liz. All right, the next update from Tiffany.
Thank you. I'm not going to go on camera because luckily I don't have a camera on my laptop. So our agency update is available on the Plan RVA website, but just to cover some of the highlights, We presented to the CTB back in June about our additions to the FY20 SIP. You can find information, including the copy of our presentation as well as the video on those links provided. We are still evaluating our allocations based off of revenue projections and agency needs, and so those scenarios are being still explored by our finance division. But we do plan to still have something set by September. We wanted to highlight some of our awards that we've received. So we received from the FTA 2 grants that are totaling about $239,000. The first one is for our Mobility for All grant. This is going to be used to develop a new statewide transportation navigator website. We are collaborating with Virginia Navigator, which is a Chesterfield County-based nonprofit that provides free statewide resource information associated with aging, disabilities, post-military life, and overall well-being. So this will be a database that kind of supplements the work that we did with our Coordinated Human Services Plan to provide that information for throughout the state for any users that are in need of resources. The other one is our Integrated Mobility Innovation Grant. This is developing kind of a rural microtransit option. It's a little bit easier to say than information technology based. But we are looking to partner with 2 local partners in the state. One will be Bay Transit, so that's most relevant for you all. And then we are also partnering with Mountain Empire Older Citizens down in Wise County. So we're focusing on utilizing their existing fleet. Each transit agency will have one route that we will be testing some technology solutions in order to help with some of the resources and service gaps that they have on their route. And we are coordinating this through the Office of Innovation as well as with the Virginia Transportation Research Council. So we are really excited that we were able to get both of these grant awards, and I'll be glad to give updates as we move along with those projects. I think that some of you may have been at our 5310 webinar that we hosted yesterday. A copy of or a recording of the presentation will be available soon, but if you have any questions, you may feel free to contact myself or Brittany Bowl, who is our 5310 program manager. Last, I keep updating our Virginia Breeze, but we now have a set date of when we're going to relaunch. So our original service that we are renaming as the Valley Flyer that goes from Blacksburg to DC will restart on July 24th, and we have a whole new branding and marketing. So, be on the lookout for that. It's bright fuchsia and blue, so you will not miss that bus when it goes up and down 81. We hope to launch service to Richmond. So there's 2 additional routes that we had been advertising, and we hope that will start in early August. But as you know, everything is all kind of dependent on where we are with COVID-19. So hopefully everything will get started, but it remains to be seen. So that is all I have for my agency update.
Thanks, Tiffany. The next item on the agenda is the public comment period. I checked the chat a minute ago, didn't see any comments. Are there any comments from callers? I think we're good to move on to item 12, future meeting topics. You can see on the screen some of the topics that we've got coming up for us. I'm sure it's sort of short-sighted at this point and can only think smart scale. So we'll talk about these later.
One item to note, Madam Chair, is that the RSTP CMAQ allocations, there will likely be an action item for the August meeting related to those. Hopefully we're going to be close to being able to move forward finally. But we're going to be talking with VDOT between now and then and making sure that all our I's are dotted and our T's are crossed.
Great. Okay. That'll be good to get that said. I know there are some projects that are kind of in a holding pattern to move to the next step until those allocations become official. Someone else had a comment?
Yeah, Madam Chairman, this is Nora. I have a question for Chet. And I'm sorry, I meant to email you this after our last CVTA meeting, but I'm just going to ask you now. Do you all need to update your UPWP for that additional work you're going to be doing, or is that already accounted for?
We put some placeholders in there to provide support and act as a resource to the CBTA. So I think we're okay, but thanks for the reminder, Nora. We will make sure to look back at that and make sure we're covered.
Okay. Are there any other comments? Okay, moving on to item 13, TAC member comments. Anyone have anything to update the group on? All right, our next meeting is August 11th, and we're adjourned. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks, guys.